শুভ সন্ধ্যা সকলকে এবং শুভ নন্দন আপনাদের সকলকে। I convey my all the regards to my elders and I convey my best wishes to my youngsters and the young generation. Certainly, I don't attend, especially the many debates due to paucity of time, but I love to listen, love to learn so many things from the debates. But I do not know how to start. I'll miss the debate because I have to fly for Andal Airport and I have to go to Birbhum today itself. Only accepted this invitation because my young brother Otidev Sarkar, he went to my office and as a young man, along with his Telegraph editor, he invited me personally, and that time I could not say no. এবং আমি মনে করি কথা রাখাটাই মানুষের কাজ, এবং আমি আমার কথা রাখার জন্যই আমার বাইরে প্রোগ্রাম থাকা সত্ত্বেও সব শিডিউল বাতিল করে আমি আজকে আপনাদের সামনে এসেছি। আমি এটুকু নিশ্চয়ই বলবো, আই এম নাইদার এ অরেটর or what I say that, why do I want to say that I cannot speak good English, because in our times our medium was Bengali medium, and I am proud to say that yes, from there we study. About me, so there are so many others, lakhs and crores. Now the generations are very happy because they are getting all type of modernized systems and everything, but in our time nothing is there, only few books. That was also very costly. I must say that I don't belong to elite class. That is my worry, because sometimes I came to know that they don't like me, but I like that. Sometimes I came to know that why I can't speak good English. That also I like. Because when I sign so many files every day, without seeing the draft, is not possible without going into details. There, of course, learning, there is no end of learning. Each and every day we learn something. And we learn something new. I must congratulate the organizations, especially organizers, Otidev Sarkar and their group, and Calcutta Club, Mr. Abhijit Bose and others, all the team, full Calcutta Club teams, and employees also, and the distinguished guest also, and my brothers and sisters also, for their coming over here. The subject is very interesting. I love this subject. I salute to this subject. I congratulate, my congratulations to all the speakers who will take part for the debate. But I will miss you, but my best wishes will be with you. First, I want to salute our founding fathers whose tireless work produced a constitution that has guided and inspired us for so many years. We are ever grateful to them. Ami punam janai tade, shraddha janai tade, from Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar to Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to Mr. Patel even Suchetana Kipalini, Renuka Rai, among others. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, do you know he was elected first from West Bengal Assembly? I am proud to say at that time. He was the MP from Bengal. It may be so many people are not aware of the fact. And I am proud to say that he guided us and inspired us so many years. His ideals and vision laid the foundation of a strong democracy, ensuring justice, equality, freedom for all citizens. Not only that, our Constitution also did the hard work of awakening unity among the great diversity of culture, language, religion, community of the vast country. It is the Constitution which binds us all, caste, creed, religious, state, country. No one is above this, no one. And there is a check and balance also. We have the fundamental rights. At the same time, we have our duties also. We have the right, freedom of speech, or whatever you can say, individual right. But at the same time, we cannot compromise with our sovereignty. So there are so many check and balances. And after this Constitution, there are so many times the Constitution has been amended also for the necessity of the country. But nowadays what is going on, I am afraid it's a horrible thing is going on. That a human being, as a common man, I cannot accept it. Because if you say, what I will eat, what I will wear, what food is digestible and what food is not digestible, what cloth I will wear, or what language I will speak, or you can just control us to stop our voice. If the Constitution stop the voice of the people, then what is the need for democracy? What is the need for Constitution? We want to live in peace, and we want that everybody has the right to live in peace. Somebody will say it's a bad, and I have to appreciate, yes, it's a bad. I cannot say like this. It is a crocodile tears, if I say so. Somebody may say that new days are coming, so India needs a new constitution. But in my feeling, I am telling you, India does not need a new constitution. Because when someone talks about changing the constitution and adopting a new one, we should not see that it is not from the real point of view, but it is from the specially to please some ideology or some vision to change the view, what we think that we cannot adopt this. What they want to change is the spirit of the Constitution. But we love our Constitution because our Constitution spirit is the preamble. Our Constitution is the backbone of the Constitution. It is guiding spirit of the Indian nation. Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, for opportunity for all to stay together, unity and diversity, so many things. Our India is a vast country. Ours is a vast country. Different states, different languages, different caste, different creed, different culture. We have to accept that. And that's why this constitution was drafted. Even we were not able to draft now also. What they, our founder or soil, great son of this soil, they drafted this constitution so seriously that every point, every community, every caste, every religion, all, it was in their mind. The federalism, the democracy, the secularism, everything. If somebody say that secularism is bad, equality is unthinkable, and democracy is dangerous, and federal structure is disaster, we cannot accept this. Because great founding fathers of great movement should not be disrespected. Fine balance between fundamental rights and country sovereignty should not be damaged. And for this purpose, I must say, nowadays, what everybody is watching, but somebody cannot speak, they understand. But they cannot open their mouth. I don't blame them. It is their prerogative. What they will decide, what not. Absolutely, it is their right. Can you tell me, before 10 years ago, have you seen that media is totally purchased? Judiciary, that is also, I am not criticizing judiciary, I respect them, I have a great regards, I have humble regards for them. But they are also playing sometimes, because of some political pressure, goody-goody. Now constitution, if you want to see, that constitution will run only by the agency, for the agency, and of the agency. That we cannot accept. Constitution must be, it is of the people, by the people, for the people, what we respect. Today we are lagging behind to say, I don't have any right to speak. If I say strongly, tomorrow the ED will come to my house. And sometimes the media, now the moody media, what happened? They will show, yes, ED went there, ED along with journalist. Though Supreme Court verdict is there that it should not be. Press Council also said so many things, but they are not listening. Media is totally controlled by one particular party. I should not mention the name. You people know the name better than me. Can you tell me why media will not speak the truth? Why they are so afraid? For business, if you have anything to hide, you have income tax. You submit the income tax. You submit the other tax. Can't you fight with ED and CBI? Instead of surrendering yourself to ruling party, where is this go? Where have that gods? How our state, Bengal, they have shown the way. How we fought the battle since independence, since Renaissance. Even it is a Bengal, from Satidaha Protha to Ballo Vivaho Road to Vidhva Vivaho. Who reforms all this? Bengal. It is Raja Ram Mohan Rai. It is Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. What are these people that time when Rabindranath Tagore wrote, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls? Where you were at that time? You were not born. So which people not born at the time of independence, even they do not know the meaning of independence, it is very easy for them to suspend 147 members from parliament and within an hour to pass all the bills. I cannot give my opinion even. And after passing the bill, next day the phone is coming to the state. Did you form the committee? Lathi chalaচ্ছে, lathi. Danda chalaচ্ছে, danda. আমি একটা গভর্নমেন্টে আছি বলে আমি বুঝি ন্যায় সংহতি না কী সব করেছে। ন্যায় সংহতি না অন্যায় সংহতি আমাকে তো পড়তে হবে, আমাকে তো দেখতে হবে কী কী আছে সেটাই, না দেখেই পরের দিনই ফোন। অর্থাৎ দ্য ফেডারেল সিস্টেম টোটালি বুলডোজড। উই পিপুল সাপোর্টেড GST. We thought that one tax will help the country and help the regionalism and this federalism. But now, this GST have become the selfish tax, government of selfish tax. Now our whatever is required for state government, I am not speaking only my government, the other government also, they are not getting their respected money. Can you imagine in my state, 354 teams came to query about their so many clarification. We replied all. Every day they are disturbing us. If something happens Manipur, when Manipur burn, everybody is quiet. They don't have eyes to see. Because there, if they say anything or open the mouth, then BJP will be angry. This is the role of the media. Now judiciary, tell me how many people they have the guards. Who have the guards, we salute to them. Because if you want to strong the democracy, please remember, 3 things must be very strong. One pillar is media, other pillar is judiciary, and third pillar is the people. But now, everybody is weak. Everybody became weak. Now, the charcha is going on. One nation, one election. One leader, one party. One government, one policy. One food, one man. One language, one man. Everything for one. You will not see two. So if you cannot adjust even with your family members, one family, only one man cannot build up a family. They have the Mr., Mrs., brothers, sisters, grandmothers, grandma, mother, papa, everybody is there, a full family. Like your Calcutta club. You are a big family. Like this, Atidev and their family. Abhik Sarkar, respected Abhikda is also there. All are collective family. Now they have forgotten the family. Family means umbrella. People's umbrella, the constitution. What will be our duty? What will be our ethics? What will be our vision? What will be our ideology? What will be our mission? Only if you want action, then there will be reaction. Reaction is going on, but very politely, very suppressive. They are just watching the situation to see that what to say. Again they will be coming in power and again they will start bulldozing us. So it is better not to disturb. Whatever they are saying, just follow up. Then what is the need to discuss this subject? It is already how it is changed. History is changed. Geography changed. Science is also. Even sometimes, I don't know, they may say that sun also captured by them, moon also captured by them, stars also captured by them. all created by a particular political party. One party rule, one government rule, one nation, one election. Are we going ahead with the presidential poll of election? Presidential form of election? My apprehension is this. Please excuse me to say this to all of you, because every day how we are fighting the battle. Even when I was not in government, I struggled too much. And when I am in government, every day struggling, every moment struggling. I do not know when the struggle will end. But struggle is existence. Nobody can survive without the struggle. So we have to carry with these janjals, with this luggage, with this baggage, with this so many unworthy things. But there are some people who are also fighting today also. They can die their lives, but they will not compromise with the ideology. There are some people, and my salute to them. And I believe one day will come, it will be exposed. Only agency cannot build up the country, and only threat. Everybody is insecure. You tell me financially, every businessman. How many businessmen they left the countries because of this torture? If anybody is saying anything, next day getting a phone call, tomorrow ED is coming, tomorrow CBI is coming. Now CAG also became their small brother. This is intolerable, unacceptable, and we cannot accept that. For this reason, we have to fight more and more. We have to sacrifice more and more. You have to struggle more and more. But I am sure there will be end of autocracy. There will be an end of the Hitlerism, the Stalinism. Even there will be an end. The agencies Raj. We love each and everybody. We don't have any discrimination between one to other. We respect all society, all caste, all creed, because it is Rabindranath Tagore who said, Punjab, Sindhu, Gujarat, Maratha, Dravida, Utkala, Bongo. And yes, we always held our head high because of Rabindranath Tagore, because of Gandhiji, because of Netaji, because of Patel, because of Rabindranath Thakur, because of Deshabandhu, because of Nazrul, because of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. It may be Nazrul Islam, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the forefather of the countries. We love all of them because they gave us the freedom, and now we are giving in the so-called name to change everything from the constitution. Instead of freedom, we are getting lollipop. A small lollipop. Taste it. I cannot impose my things to you. But taste it. Watch it. And sometimes I will request the media also. Please see that. Earlier we have seen media also divide their time like this. 50% ruling party, 50% opposition. But now I have seen a new vision. 95% the ruling party and their supporter, and only 5% is the opposition. How the country will run? How the proper matter will reach. If you give 1 kg of ration card, there also Prime Minister's photo is there. If give 1 injection for COVID also, his photo must be there. If give any cloth to anybody, there also only and only. That means in country nobody is there except only one man. I don't have any personal allegation against of him because we don't do it. We respect we know the courtesy. So we respect all political parties. We respect all the political leaders. But I have never seen this type of so good Prime Minister. I have never seen in my life. I was 7 terms MP. I worked central government 3-4 times. I am also this assembly 3 times. So I have seen so many Prime Minister like Rajiv Gandhi. I worked with him. I have seen, yes, Manmohan Singh ji. I worked with him. I have seen Narasimha Rao ji. I worked with him. I worked with Gujral ji and others. Debagoura ji even. But I have not seen so cute, so sweet, and so good Prime Minister. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. And thanks a lot to ABP Group and the Calcutta Club for giving me this opportunity. I have taken too much time. Please excuse me for that. But ultimately, I said, I have not said any bad name. I gave a good name. Sweet and cute and very good. Goodbye.
Thank you. A keynote strikes the note on which the orchestra is supposed to play. In a debate, we have 2 orchestras, and it is my pleasant duty to welcome the quartet on each side to the dais. Today, with Madam Mamta Banerjee as our Chief Minister, we follow the protocol of having the side speaking for the motion on my right. Something we didn't do for 37 years, but we've changed it now. So I will welcome on the stage speakers speaking in favor of the motion with a brief introduction to each of the quartet of the orchestra who will play according to the keynote. Speaking first for the motion is a man who has served as a judge in the Kolkata High Court, moved over to become the Chief Justice of the Madras High Court, and then over questionable circumstances was removed to become the Chief Justice of the Meghalaya High Court, but who credited himself in every single post he has held. A man who was much feared as a judge, but much revered for his judgment, Justice Sanjeev Banerjee. Speaking second for the motion is a man you've all heard here before, founder of Shumantrana, a strategic advisory firm that advises on investment and disinvestment strategies, a former managing director of Deloitte and PwC in India, a chartered accountant with a graduate degree in law, and somebody who has completed advanced management program at the Harvard Business School. A much seen face in the corporate world of this city. Can I call upon Mr. Rupen Roy, second speaker in favor of the motion. Economists, we're told, have to have a leaning to the left or the right. It is much more fashionable for economists to have a leaning to the left. And the third speaker in favor of the motion is a left-leaning activist and economist based in Calcutta, convener of the Joint Forum Against NRC, which has organized a sustained campaign against the Centre's Citizenship Thrust. May I welcome on stage Mr. Proshenjit Bose, the third speaker in favor of the motion. And last but not the least, the only lady in the panel today, apart from our keynote speaker, the last speaker in favor of the motion heads the women's wing of the Congress, a former MLA from Delhi. She has 871,000 followers on X. So there's somebody following her every second. She's also a former national president of this Congress Students' Wing. May I welcome on stage Alka Lamba. With the fours settling into their positions, it is time now to call upon the against on the stage. And first speaker speaking against the motion is founder and research director of Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, one of the most prominent independent think tanks doing legal research. A Calcutta boy, his area of specialization are constitutional law and regulation of digital economy. May I welcome on stage Argho Sengupta. Another Calcutta boy, now based in Delhi, will be the second speaker against the motion. Additionally, he is the additional Solicitor General of India, so he's privy to the corridors of power in Delhi, which the keynote speaker alluded to. He graduated from the National Law School of India in Bangalore and went to the University of Leicester to complete his master's. Welcome on stage Vikramjit Banerjee. Speaking against the motion, third is the Gardiner Professor of History at Harvard University, a former parliamentarian, grandnephew of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Sugato Bose. Can I welcome on stage Professor Sugato Bose? He's the author, as you know, of multiple books. In fact, he's just leaving this country to have his newest book discussed in the United States. And finally, speaking last against the motion, is a man you have seen in this club a number of times. A man who was the former governor of Tripura and Meghalaya, former president of the Bengal BJP, somebody not to hold back on his words, and even the state unit of the Saffron Party has been at the receiving end of his sharp tongue at times. May I welcome Mr. Tathagato Roy. The problem is they have so many VIPs that their introduction takes so long. If they had people like me, it would have been short and sweet. The motion today, ladies and gentlemen of the Calcutta Club, reads, "This House believes India does not need a new constitution." Need and new being the two words critical in the conversation that you will hear. I've always wondered why the Indian Constitution has 145,000 words compared, say, to the American Constitution that has 4,400 words. Until a friend pointed out this evening to me, it is so that you and I cannot interpret the Constitution. We need judges to interpret the Constitution, preferably judges of the Supreme Court, to understand what our Constitution says. Because most of us are not considered literate enough to go through 145,000 words. So it is only fitting that the first speaker speaking for the motion happens to be a former judge. A dear friend and a former judge, I invite retired Justice Shonji Banerjee to be the opening batsman for the motion today. Just to let you know, before Shonji starts talking, about some of the rules of this debate, because it is mandatory in this debate that the chairperson reads out the rules. The debate is held on parliamentary debating style, which means, like all our parliamentarians, the speakers are polite, pure, plausible, and politically correct. The language has to be legislative, which means it is legal, illuminating, and literary. The duel is verbal, which means it's not violent or vitriolic. And finally, ever since Albert Einstein formulated his law of specific relativity, we have had to impose on debaters a new dimension, which is called time. And time at the National Telegraph debate does not expand to let the speaker fill that with his thoughts. So you need to finish in time. And the time allocated to each speaker is total of 10 minutes. At the end of 8 minutes, we have a timekeeper located very far away at the back. But are you visible? Okay, as long as you're audible. At 8 minutes, the bell will ring to tell you that you need to decelerate. At 10 minutes, you may be lifted off the dais. And not necessarily by the timekeeper, in case you think that's going to happen. So all set, Justice Shonji Banerjee.
Good evening. I'm no politician. And with due respect to my politician friends here and elsewhere, that's the last thing I would probably aspire to be. I was trained as a lawyer, and then I've been on the bench for 17 years. As a lawyer and as judge, you leave your personal morality by the wayside and you refer to the universal and inclusive sense of morality governed by justice, equity, and good conscience. Between the majestic Mahotsav in the wake of the 75th year of India's independence and the pomp and grandeur on display leading to the 75th Janmotsav of the Republic, with a sundry other Janmabhoomi revelry thrown in between for variety, you could be excused if you thought that India had finally taken off, as economists would say, after taxiing on the takeoff runway for decades together. A plethora of the poverty indices have been tackled, never mind the poor or the number of poor, and we change the pages of our history book every day as we lay claim to the birth of every scientific notion of modern science et al. To our Shruti days. Though the creation of thousands of kilometers of additional highways, we have better road connectivity, we still find the rustic child looking longingly at the other type of Indian from the side of the road. And between overs of a televised India cricket match, we are told of the tall and lofty promises of someone Sarkar, and it is drilled into us that we are on the fast lane, and woe betide anyone who tries to question the obscure figures. Indians are now guarded in what they say, in what their tastes are. The letters D and E in reverse alphabetical order are not spelt aloud. ED. For you know who is there. And all this while our Constitution and the preamble to it promises to secure to all its citizens justice, liberty and equality, and the real object of it all is to promote fraternity for the integrity and the unity of the nation. Going by the age of civilized Homo sapiens and of organized society, the modern nation state and the even more later trend of constitution are recent phenomena. Constitutions are born at the birth of a state or upon an epochal moment in the life of a state or upon a state changing its form of governance. Constitutions are sometimes not even authoritative documents and may be born in dubious circumstances as a culmination of a bloody revolution or at the end of the rule by a military junta or the like. A constitution ordinarily does not have a sell-by date, though some of the older constitutions are rigid. In India, we have a rather flexible constitution and a constitution that has seen, in addition to the so many words that Shondeep spoke about, 105 amendments. A constitution that has seen 17 of its original provisions completely deleted and 154 or so of the provisions modified. Our constitution is regarded as a living document anchored to the modes of the times, and it's interpreted to ensure that it is for the common good. Every constitution has a special place. In itself, it is accepted as if by way of a leap of faith. But the changes that are sought to be brought out are scrutinized. Indeed, in 2023, we celebrated 50 years of the Kesavananda Bharati judgment, where the Indian Supreme Court accepted and proclaimed the basic structure doctrine. Regrettably, a moment of celebration has been hijacked to drum up support for a new constitution. The resolve in the original preamble was to constitute India into a sovereign democratic republic. Two further words, secular and socialist, were introduced by the 42nd Amendment, and they hardly make a change to the concept or the idea that the Constitution conveys. Our Constitution embraces the kind of socialism that was defined by John Rawls as one providing equal opportunity. The constitutional principle of secularism is that the state is not guided by any religion, but the state is equally sympathetic of all religions rather than the state not recognizing any religion. Constitutions are designed to define the parameters of authority between several institutions of the government actors and individuals. But the constitutions usually indicate and give an identity and direction to the society that they seek to serve. The basic structure doctrine, in its essence, says that there are some fundamental features of the Constitution which are immutable, inviolable, in that you can alter the other parts, but you cannot change the basic tenets. It's like you can have a facial surgery if you can afford one, but you cannot altogether replace your face. The celebrated Justice H.R. Khanna, accepting the basic structure doctrine as substantially correct, observed that any amending body organized within the statutory scheme, however verbally unlimited its power, cannot by its very structure change the fundamental pillars supporting its constitutional authority. A leading jurist of our times, Mr. Fali Nariman, delivered a lecture on the centennial birth anniversary of another giant, Ram Jethmalani. He observed and spoke at length that the basic structure doctrine had served the Republic well, and that on the very few occasions when the judiciary had struck down some constitutional amendment, it was on good judicial principles and not by resorting to the principle of interference. For the same reason that constitutions are born, you might need to change the constitution. A constitution may, for instance, be rigid and not keeping up with the times when you may need to change it. But the Indian Constitution, from its first amendment, when the executive clashed with what may have been perceived to be an elitist judiciary. This is 8?
That's 10.
Oh. Elitist judiciary, the floodgates opened and several amendments have been issued. First and foremost, we must deliver on the promises that the Constitution speaks of. We must allow the female fetus a chance to be born. We must allow basic education, shelter, and food to all. And after we have achieved these objectives and the basic awareness which is at the heart of democracy, where people vote according to the conscience and upon being aware, then may we talk about a new constitution, for then this one would have delivered. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Justice Banerjee. And before I do anything, I have to make my first amendment of the day, which is I forgot to mention to you the name of our very important timekeeper. She's Dr. Shubhasree Mojumdar. So, and she's hiding herself in the background, but she's a very important person in this debate. I think the proposition has launched the debate exactly as we would have expected to, saying that the largest written constitution on this planet is very comprehensive, yet admitting that in only 8 decades of existence, it has had to be amended 105 times. Compare with the American Constitution, written in 1787, ratified in 1788, which up to today has been amended just 27 times. Justice Banerjee also told you about the famous Supreme Court ruling in the Kesavananda Bharati case, where it was explicitly stated that the doctrine of the Constitution cannot be altered, ring-fencing the extent of flexibility that the legislative has over the Constitution. Obviously, this is what prompted people like Dr. Bibek Debroy, one of the chief of the Economy Advisory Councils of the Prime Minister, to write a massive article saying India needs a new constitution. If you change a caterpillar too many times, it can become a butterfly. And then you don't recognize the original caterpillar when you look at the butterfly. Sometimes, of course, the caterpillar becomes a horrible, ugly moth as well. And then the question is, you don't call it a change, you call it a need for a metamorphosis or a new constitution. And I think speaking on that line will be the first speaker of the opposition as I invite onto the dais Argho Sengupta.
Respected Chairman, sir, and ladies and gentlemen, usually as the leader of the opposition in a parliamentary debate, one has to take on the Prime Minister. But today I have to take on both the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister, both of whom have argued in favor of the motion, and I will try my best. And so let me start with a story. Acharya Kripalani, the noted freedom fighter, lived almost to 100. And during his later period, someone remarked to him on noting his great health, "Acharya Sahab, you have such a great constitution." He wryly smiled and said, "What constitution? It's only amendments." And by that time, when Kripalani had died in 1982, the Indian constitution had been amended a whopping 46 times. That is, 1.5 times every year. And now, as the Prime Minister pointed out, it has been amended 105 times. So for anyone who is supporting this motion, the first question that arises is, what constitution are we talking about? Are we talking about Ambedkar's original constitution? Are we talking about Nehru's amended constitution, which severely shrank fundamental rights to free speech and started land redistribution programs? Are we talking about Indira Gandhi's Garibi Hatao constitution with a raft of socialist-inspired amendments, including the words socialist and secular in the preamble that were adverted to? Or are we talking about the constitution by Prime Minister Narendra Modi with the idea of one nation with reservation on the basis of economic criteria and GST? Which constitution are we talking about, or are we, as the government today, is the government actually saying that Nehru, Gandhi and Modi are the same? I ask them, what is their case today? On this side of the house, we have a very simple proposition, that change in a constitutional scheme is natural. Not changing a constitution is unnatural. It perhaps is our view, and the view of the government here, that the story of the Indian Constitution began in 1950. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a product of our colonized minds. The fact is that India has had a constitutional culture that goes back a very long way, and it has an unbroken constitutional culture. If we go back to the Dharma Shastras, you will find that the idea of kingship is an idea of trust, of accountability, which is the core of constitutional thought today. If you go to the Mughal period, you will see the Dastan-ul-Amuls, which are essentially codes of administrative law. You will find Shahi Firmans, which are decisions made by Mughal rulers. And you will also find Ains, which is essentially the body called Jus Gentium, or the core corpus of law. That is nothing but core constitutional thought. And of course, in the British period, we had the Government of India Acts, culminating in the Constitution of India. India has had an unbroken constitutional culture for over 2,000 years. The Constitution of India 1950 is one in that particular line. It is a wonderful constitution. Let me make it very clear right at the outset that this constitution does not need to be rejected wholesale, and that cannot be the argument of any sensible individual. But constitutions change, and this constitution, with 75 years of experience of independent India, needs to change too. So why should we embrace change? Let me offer you 3 arguments. There's one fundamental reason that I believe that we need to embrace change, and that is because the Constitution of India, as I've argued in my recent book, The Colonial Constitution, is a colonial document. Let me give you 3 reasons. First, the Honorable Chief Minister came and spoke about the ED and the CBI. The Prime Minister here spoke about the ED as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you, why is it that in 75 years of our independent existence, and this is not a party political issue, but in 75 years of our independent existence, not a single government has come up with a manifesto of having a CBI Mukt Bharat. There has not been a single government of any party that has come up with this manifesto. In the last 20 years, we have not had a single party say that we want an ED Mukt Bharat. Why is that so? And what does the Constitution have to do with it? Ladies and gentlemen, the Constitution of India creates the basis of a police state. Let me tell you why. Article 21 of the Constitution is the most fundamental of our fundamental rights. That is the right to life and personal liberty. But that is followed by a lesser known article, which is Article 22, that legitimizes preventive detention, which essentially means the ability of the police to be able to pick you up, throw you in prison on a whim for a matter of days or weeks. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Constitution of India has this dubious distinction of having a preventive detention provision in a fundamental rights chapter. Why is that so? The framers of the Constitution were undoubtedly concerned about law and order. They were debating the Constitution at the time of partition. In fact, the day they were debating the preventive detention provision, there were riots in Paharganj, which they had to cross over before they could reach Parliament House. But those riots ended in 2 days. The partition violence ended in 2 years. But the provision on preventive detention continues in the Constitution and not as a theoretical construct. In 2022, whereas there were 58 lakh people who were arrested in this country, by arrest I mean following a proper legal process, in comparison, 86.6 lakh people were detained, that is, picked up by the police and thrown in without any reason whatsoever being provided. So the basis of this idea of the police state comes from the Constitution. This has fostered 2 stepchildren, the CBI and the ED. So if the CBI and the ED are misbehaving, then maybe we should complain about the parents as well. Let me give you the second reason as to why I think the Constitution needs to change, and perhaps the Honorable Chief Minister might have agreed with me on this, is that the Constitution sets up what I call in my book a New Delhi Darbar. It is heavily centralized. Take the recent judgment of the Supreme Court in Article 370 case. I don't want to get into the merits of that judgment, but they said one thing there which was quite alarming, which is that under President's rule, a President can exercise all or any functions of the state government that includes dividing a state and exterminating its existence. So let's take a hypothetical situation. Let's take a central government, not this one, that doesn't like the government of West Bengal, against not this one, but this has been a common occurrence in the history of West Bengal for many, many decades, that we don't get along with governments at the center. And suppose they don't like it, and they impose President's rule and decide that now Gorkha land will be an independent state. Now, I don't want to deny anybody's claims to Gorkha land, but I don't think anybody can argue that that would be a legitimate way of doing this. But the Constitution, according to the Supreme Court, sanctions that. So should we not revisit the over-centralization in the Constitution? And finally, the Constitution is a colonial document because it is taken heavily from the Government of India Act 1935. Health and education were 2 key levers that were necessary in any constitutional framework, but they find place only in 1 provision, that is health, and 6 provisions out of 395 in education. The Constitution today has no provisions that deal with the internet and data security. The Constitution today needs to keep up with the times. And what I have spoken about, the parts that need to keep up with the times, is about 2/3 of the constitutional text. So why not take those parts of the Constitution which are good, put it in a new structure that works. Now, side government might come here and say that why not amend the constitution only? Why do you want to change it? But as I've said, this is 2/3 of the constitutional text, and we can take what is good from this constitution and take it into a new structure. So let me end with one point, which is really the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is that the talk of a new constitution gives people fear that this is the onset of a constitutional Hindu Rashtra. This is really the fear in everyone's heads, that when you're talking about the new constitution, you're going to create a Hindu Rashtra. What I have tried to show today is that the debate on the constitution is not a debate that focuses around 50 years. It is a debate that spans centuries. Change has happened over centuries. So I urge everyone here not to see this through narrow Modi-tinted glasses. The constitution is not that kind of issue. And if you do want to, then look at one document, which is the only constitutional document that has come out of the Sangh Parivar, and that is the Constitution of the Hindustan Free State in 1954, endorsed by Savarkar himself. And one provision really struck out for me, which is that it said, India shall have no state religion. The possibility of a constitutional Hindu Rashtra was shut by the Sangh Parivar in that document. So calls for a new constitution today, and I'll just, with the indulgence of a chair, will end in 30 seconds. Calls for a new constitution today is a call to essentially take the best of what the 1950 constitution has to offer. The preamble, the equality clause, the non-discrimination clause. Take the best of the Dharma Shastras, the best of the Mughal constitutional scheme, and also our lived experience over the course of the last 75 years, so that the Indian constitution continues to remain the conscience of the world. And because the Honorable Chief Minister quoted from Tagore, I can't help but quote from Tagore's Bharat Tirtho, because in Tagore's terms, the constitution is like a Mongol ঘট, আর মঙ্গল ঘটটা এখনো ভরা হয়নি। তাই কবিগুরু লিখেছিলেন যে মার অভিষেকে এসো এসো তরা, মঙ্গল ঘট হয়নি যে ভরা, সবার পরশে পবিত্র করা তীর্থ নীরে, এই ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, Argho. I think the opposition lines are very clearly laid, and there are three major reasons why they think the constitution needs to be changed. The first is, of course, the fact that it does not pay sufficient attention to health and education. I think those of us that are involved with these two aspects know that as a nation we have spent the least amount of GDP on the health and education sector and continue to do so. The second major point that he made was the point about what he called the New Delhi Darbar, the so-called pseudo-federalism that we have in our constitution, where the center and state are equal, but the center is more equal than the states. And we know that from examples that he's quoted, that the relationship between the center and state in a true federal structure should have been the relationship between a benevolent mother and a very much loved daughter. What has happened in this country, particularly in this state, the relationship, I'm afraid, has become that between a very aggressive mother-in-law and a somewhat more aggressive daughter-in-law. And you know what happens when that occurs in a family. And finally, and this is the first reason he quoted, was that the constitution should be scrapped because it smells of colonialism. And these were the three major points that the opposition feels the constitution should be changed for. Looking at the president of the Calcutta Club, looking very unhappy in the front row, I wondered whether he had the thought that the Calcutta Club was also had a colonial origin, so maybe by the same argument it should be scrapped as well. Just as the language of this debate had a colonial origin, but we still debate in English here at the national debate. On that note, can I invite the second speaker for the motion, Rupen Roy, to cast his thoughts on the matter.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, sir, distinguished speakers on my side. Of course, someone has referred to him as the Prime Minister because of his physical resemblance, I guess. But he is our leader. and distinguished members of the opposition. I am a little bit of an odd person out, I would say, because I have never practiced law. I have all my life been a business consultant. And while preparing for this debate, I read what Dr. Ambedkar, his formal education was. And what I found was that he had 2 degrees, doctoral degrees, one from University of Columbia in New York. You know, it was not fashionable at that time to go there. People went to Oxford and Cambridge. And the subject of his thesis was ancient Indian commerce. And in LSE, he was more like Dr. Raghuram Rajan. His subject of his thesis was the problems of the Indian rupee. So I was a little assured that even though I have never practiced law, I would be able to contribute a little bit. Now, Constitution is not a holy book. You know, you cannot say that only 4 Brahmin priests will interpret the Vedas or 4 Arabic-knowing Maulavis will interpret the Quran. Every Indian is a stakeholder in the Constitution. It's not just judges, lawyers, professors, historians, and economists who are impacted. Every one of you, doctors, nurses, Aam Aadmi, peasants, they are all stakeholders in this Constitution, because although in the drawing rooms we say that, oh, I am a taxpayer, my money is being wasted, the fact is that GST gathers 18 trillion rupees, whereas income tax only 13. And the poorest of poor person pays taxes. And therefore, he is a stakeholder in how the nation is going to be run. The first thing that I think Mr. Chairman also alluded to is that is the Indian Constitution too long? Now, my worthy opponent argued in favor of changing the constitutions. What I did not hear, and I am not a legal expert, so maybe I heard it wrong, I did not hear him saying, let us throw out the constitution and have a new one. He was talking about changes. And changes to the constitution are happening. There have been 106 amendments to the constitution so far. Now, first argument is too long. The US Constitution has 3543 words, including signatures. The Indian Constitution has 145,000 words. But everything Indian is not bad and everything American is not good, because the Constitution of Alabama, which is a state in the United States, has 373,274 words. If you look at the holy books, Quran has got 77,430 words. King James's Bible has 788,280 words. And Mahabharata has 1.8 million words. Now this, if you say I want to cut the constitution or change the constitution or mutilate the constitution because it's too long, I am reminded of a person called Procrustes, if you have read Greek mythology. He was a Greek gunda. What he used to do was he used to get his victims. He had an iron bed of a certain size. And if you are short like me, he would beat them up so that he elongated their figure. And if he was tall, then he would cut their feet. So are we trying to say that just because this is long, we need to fit it to a certain size? In business we say force-fitting somebody or force-fitting a narrative, facts to a narrative is proscestus. Now, we have heard this word many times that Indian Constitution is colonial. Now, I think it's a matter of a very supreme irony that all the members of the opposition are products of the Jesuit schools in English medium, and we are debating here, Bangla bitorko korchi na, French korchi na, not in Hindi, but in English. So, what we have to understand is, whatever is foreign is not synonymous with colonial. Tagore, when he wrote the mission statement of Vishwabharati, he said, Vishwabharati's obligation is to offer others the hospitality of our best culture and the right to accept from them their best. So, there is no harm. And you know, the sponsor of this debate is Sister Nivedita University. She was born in Northern Ireland in the United Kingdom. The secretary of Tagore, Elmhurst, served in the British Army. He was an Englishman. So, Dibe ar nibe milabe milibe jabe na phire should be our motto. So therefore, it does not matter whether we borrowed something from France, something from US, something from UK, it does not become colonial. Just because your chip is designed in Silicon Valley does not become an imperialist computer or a phone. So we have borrowed ideas. Our constitution is not colonial. Our constitution has served us for the last 74, 75 years, and it has upheld our liberty and our rights. Now, when we talk about colonial constitution, we talk about 7th schedule, IPS, preventive intervention, emergency, role of governor, and so on and so forth. But I think what we need to do to understand is that these things can be amended. It's a living document. We can change, adapt, and get rid of what we don't like. It does not mean that we have to throw the baby with the bathwater. Now, I think I will say two things. One is that there was a very famous play in Bengal called Manjuri Amer Manjuri. It was from Chekhov's Cherry Orchard, where the Lalu, who wins the orchard by auction, he's a capitalist, rising capitalist, he comes and says, Bhang bata bhang, noya jinis hobek, dam diye dibo. So if I don't know what I'm going to have in place of the Belgian cut glass chandelier, he's breaking it, we don't know what will come in its place. So I don't think that just breaking things, smashing things is the right thing to do. It has served our purpose, it has done us well, and we need to make sure that it is preserved and we are proud of it. Lastly, I would like to say that we should not look only at the past. We must look at the future to see how our constitution will cope. You know, today if there was no internet at the time of the drafting of the constitution, so you can't look at Das Capital or read the speech of Shyama Prasad Mukherjee to say how internet will be handled. If you want to shut down internet in Manipur or Kashmir or West Bengal, how is the constitution going to handle it? Artificial intelligence is going to completely change the world. It is going to take away many jobs. Even the legal system will be impacted. The backlog of cases can come down through the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence, and that project is underway. So, climate change in an interconnected world requires rule of law which is interdependent between countries. So let us think of how future challenges will come, how AI will impact our society, how internet, digital world, synthetic currencies, these are the new things that will come. Let us not crib over the fact that, oh, why is IPS there? Why is the governor there? Those are matters for experts and historians to write books on and argue among each other. But I think we need to look at the future and see how the world is changing, and therefore how our constitution can adapt itself. And let us take pride in our constitution and not behave like Proscestes and say that I have to fit this constitution is too long, let us cut it, or that it is colonial, let's jettison it, or that this constitution has outlived its utility, therefore we must have a new one, without saying what it would be. So my submission is that no sane human being will say that, and that case has so far not been made. Maybe some of our other opposition members will raise that point, but no one has said, let us throw this constitution out lock, stock and barrel. We know that a constitution must have amendment, but amendment does not mean India needs a new constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupenda.